On Fergie, emails between her and Epstein seem to show that she may have had a crush on him, or some have suggested she was in love with the disgraced financier and convicted pedophile, let's not forget.
For many years, Sarah Ferguson has been a familiar public figure. She was once married to Prince Andrew and is the mother of Princess Beatrice and Princess Eugenie. After leaving royal life, she built a career of her own as a writer, television personality, and charity supporter. But alongside that public image, Ferguson has also faced years of media attention over financial problems and personal scandals. One of the most controversial issues involves her connection to Jeffrey Epstein. Epstein was a wealthy American financier who was convicted in 2008 for offenses involving the prostitution of a minor and later died in prison in 2019 while awaiting trial on new charges. For years, Ferguson maintained that her relationship with Epstein was limited to small financial assistance and occasional business advice. However, recently released emails suggest something very different. The two communicated frequently and used strikingly personal language in their messages. This revelation has raised a troubling question for the public. What was the true nature of their relationship? Background of the relationship. Sarah Ferguson was born in 1959 in the United Kingdom. In 1986, she married Prince Andrew, the second son of Queen Elizabeth II. The marriage quickly placed Ferguson in the global spotlight as a member of the British royal family. During their marriage, they had two daughters, Princess Beatrice, born in 1988, and Princess Eugenie, born in 1990. However, the marriage did not last. After a series of tabloid scandals in the early 1990s, the couple separated in 1992 and officially divorced in 1996. Despite the divorce, Ferguson remained personally close to Andrew and continued to appear at some family gatherings involving the royal family. Life after the divorce was financially difficult for Ferguson. Without steady financial support from the royal household, she accumulated significant debts. To generate income, she pursued several commercial projects. She wrote books, appeared on television programs, and signed promotional deals. These activities brought in money, but they did not fully solve her financial problems. At the same time, Jeffrey Epstein was expanding his influence among wealthy elites. Before entering finance, Epstein worked briefly as a teacher in New York. He later moved into financial management and began working with extremely wealthy clients. A key figure in Epstein's social network was Ghislaine Maxwell. Maxwell helped introduce Epstein to powerful figures in politics, business, and high society. Through these connections, Epstein became a regular presence at elite social events. In 2006, Epstein was accused of running a prostitution operation involving underage girls in Florida. In 2008, he pleaded guilty to a single charge and received a widely criticized plea deal. He served a short sentence and was released in 2009. The connection between Ferguson and Epstein appears to date back to the late 1990s. Reports suggest that Prince Andrew first met Epstein around 1999 through Ghislaine Maxwell. From that point forward, Epstein occasionally appeared in social circles connected to Andrew. One example often mentioned is a birthday event for Andrew held at Windsor Castle around 2000. Through gatherings like this, Ferguson likely encountered Epstein within shared social environments. During this period, Ferguson was actively searching for new business opportunities. Epstein, who presented himself as a well-connected financial advisor, began offering business advice and guidance. Emails released years later show Ferguson repeatedly thanking Epstein for his help. In several messages, she used very personal language and expressed deep gratitude. In one message, she even described him as the kind of brother she had always wished for. These early exchanges suggest that the relationship between Ferguson and Epstein gradually moved beyond simple social introductions and developed into something more personal over time. Development of the relationship. The relationship between Sarah Ferguson and Jeffrey Epstein did not begin with financial help or controversy. It developed gradually over more than a decade through social introductions, private communication, and later, financial assistance. The earliest connection appears to trace back to the late 1990s. Around 1999, Prince Andrew reportedly met Epstein through Ghislaine Maxwell. Maxwell frequently moved within wealthy British and American social circles and introduced Epstein to several influential figures. Through this network, Epstein began appearing at gatherings attended by Andrew. One of the early settings where Epstein may have encountered Ferguson was during celebrations connected to Andrew's birthday around 2000 at Windsor Castle. At the time, Epstein was seen as a wealthy financier with powerful connections. His presence in these social circles did not initially attract widespread scrutiny. For Ferguson, these early meetings occurred during a difficult period in her life. After her divorce from Andrew in 1996, she had been searching for new business opportunities while dealing with growing financial pressure. Epstein, who presented himself as an experienced financial advisor, appeared to be someone who could provide guidance. Several years later, the relationship became more visible. In 2006, Epstein and Maxwell reportedly attended the 18th birthday celebration of Princess Beatrice. The event took place in Windsor and brought together friends and acquaintances of the royal family. The timing of Epstein's presence later raised questions because, only weeks earlier, he had been accused in Florida of operating a prostitution ring involving underage girls. Despite those accusations, Epstein continued moving in elite social circles at the time. There is no evidence that Ferguson was involved in any of his criminal activities. However, the fact that he remained present in social gatherings connected to the royal family later became a point of criticism. By 2009, the connection between Ferguson and Epstein had moved beyond occasional social contact. That year marked the beginning of a series of emails that would later become public. In April 2009, Ferguson wrote to Epstein seeking advice about a business idea called Mother's Army, a project designed to support and connect mothers around the world. In the message, she addressed Epstein in highly enthusiastic terms. She wrote, "My dear, spectacular, and special friend Jeffrey, you are a legend." The message suggested that Epstein had already become someone she trusted for advice. At the time the email was written, Epstein had already served his controversial sentence after pleading guilty to a prostitution-related charge involving a minor, 2 months later. In June 2009, Ferguson wrote again while discussing her efforts to expand the project. In that email, she wrote, "I am alive. Yes, I did go to the First Lady, and she loved the Mother's Army." Observers later believed that the reference to the First Lady may have referred to Michelle Obama. Although the exact context was never fully clarified, the relationship became more controversial the following month. In July 2009, Ferguson traveled to New York and met Epstein during the visit. She also brought her daughters, Princess Beatrice and Princess Eugenie, to lunch with him. The meeting occurred not long after Epstein had been released from prison. An email later sent by Epstein to Maxwell recorded the encounter. He wrote simply that Ferg and the 2 girls came yesterday. He also discussed helping arrange accommodation for Ferguson while she was in the city. At the time, the meeting did not receive much public attention. Years later, however, critics questioned the decision to introduce the young princesses to Epstein so soon after his conviction, a month later. In August 2009, Ferguson sent Epstein another email expressing strong personal gratitude. In the message, she wrote that she had never been more touched by a friend's kindness and praised him for the compliments he had given her in front of her daughters. In the same exchange, she described Epstein as the brother I have always wished for. This language suggested that the relationship had developed emotional dimensions in addition to business advice. Financial issues soon became central to their communication. By September and October 2009, Ferguson was facing serious financial pressure. Emails indicate that she urgently needed about £20,000 to cover housing expenses. Other unpaid bills reportedly totaled as much as $100,000. During these exchanges, Epstein appeared willing to help. Some messages suggested that he had already been assisting her financially for a number of years. The situation gradually created a pattern in which Ferguson turned to Epstein when financial problems intensified. In January 2010, Ferguson wrote another email thanking him for his support. One line in the message read, "You are a legend. Just marry me," although likely meant humorously. The wording again reflected unusually personal communication. The following month, Ferguson invited Epstein to the 50th birthday celebration of Prince Andrew at St. James's Palace. Records indicate that Epstein ultimately did not attend. Nevertheless, the invitation demonstrated that he remained connected to social events involving members of the royal family. In 2010, Ferguson also became involved in a separate public scandal. A secretly recorded meeting appeared to show her offering access to Prince Andrew in exchange for money. The incident triggered intense media criticism and increased financial pressure. During that period, she wrote several emails to Epstein describing her distress. In one message, she wrote that she was 1,000% being hung out to dry. In another exchange, she referred to him as "my pillar," suggesting that she viewed him as a key source of support during the crisis. The financial relationship reached its most widely reported point later that year. Epstein paid £15,000 to help Ferguson settle an urgent debt. The payment was reportedly transferred through Prince Andrew. When the payment became public, Ferguson acknowledged accepting the money. The revelation generated significant criticism because of Epstein's criminal history. In March 2011, Ferguson addressed the controversy in a public interview with the Evening Standard. During the interview, she described accepting the money from Epstein as a gigantic error of judgment. She also stated that she found crimes involving minors deeply disturbing. However, private communication continued shortly afterward. In April 2011, Ferguson wrote another email to Epstein apologizing for the public statements she had made. In that message, she referred to him as a supreme friend and praised him as steadfast and generous. She explained that her public criticism had been influenced by legal threats and intense pressure. At one point in the message, she even compared a tense phone conversation between them to a scene involving the fictional character Hannibal Lecter. Later that year, in September 2011, Ferguson reportedly sent Epstein a brief message congratulating him on the birth of a son. The existence of the child was never publicly confirmed, but the message ended simply with, "Sarah Chanin Twex." The relationship did not appear to end after these exchanges. Reports later indicated that Ferguson stayed at one of Epstein's properties in 2013. The visit suggested that contact between the two continued, despite the growing controversy surrounding Epstein. The connection between them therefore lasted far longer than initially acknowledged. Communication appears to have continued in various forms until the late 2010s. In 2019, Epstein was arrested again in the United States on federal sex trafficking charges. The case drew global attention and renewed scrutiny of the many powerful figures who had once associated with him. Later that year, Epstein died in custody while awaiting trial. His death intensified public interest in the network of relationships he had maintained for decades. Looking back, the timeline shows that the connection between Ferguson and Epstein was not limited to a single financial incident. It developed gradually through introductions in elite social circles, years of personal communication, and financial support during Ferguson's most difficult periods. Meaning of the relationship. The connection between Sarah Ferguson and Jeffrey Epstein cannot be understood simply as a casual friendship. The emails, financial transactions, and continued contact over many years suggest several layers of meaning: financial, personal, and ethical. First, The financial dimension played a major role. After her divorce from Prince Andrew in 1996, Ferguson faced repeated financial problems. She pursued business ventures, wrote books, and appeared on television. But her debts often remained high. During several of these difficult periods, Epstein stepped in to provide financial help. Emails show Ferguson asking for assistance to cover housing expenses and other urgent bills. This pattern made Epstein appear almost like a private bank for Ferguson. When her financial pressure increased, she turned to him for help. Over time, the boundary between personal friendship and financial dependence became unclear. Epstein offered advice and money, while Ferguson expressed gratitude and loyalty. Such an arrangement created a relationship where personal trust and financial reliance became tightly connected. Second, the emails reveal a strong emotional tone in their communication. Ferguson did not speak to Epstein like a distant business contact. In multiple messages, she used highly personal language. At one point, she described him as the brother I have always wished for. In another exchange, she referred to him as my pillar. These words suggest emotional dependence during a period when Ferguson may have felt isolated. After leaving the royal family as an official member, she lived in a complicated position. She remained connected to royal circles through her daughters and through her continued friendship with Andrew. But she no longer held a formal royal role. At the same time, public criticism and financial scandals placed her under constant media pressure. In that environment, Epstein may have appeared to her as a supportive figure who offered both attention and practical help. Third, the relationship raises clear ethical questions. By 2008, Epstein had already been convicted in a case involving the prostitution of a minor. Despite that conviction, Ferguson continued to communicate with him and even introduced her daughters, Princess Beatrice and Princess Eugenie, to him during a visit to New York in 2009. Critics later argued that maintaining such contact showed poor judgment, even if Ferguson had no knowledge of the full extent of Epstein's crimes. The decision to remain close to him after his conviction suggested that personal benefit and loyalty may have outweighed caution. This situation also reflected a broader pattern in Ferguson's public life. One of the most famous scandals involving her occurred in 2010, when a secretly recorded meeting appeared to show her offering access to Prince Andrew in exchange for money. That incident created the impression that Ferguson sometimes used her royal connections as a financial resource, when viewed together with the Epstein relationship. Some observers saw a similar pattern. Financial pressure led Ferguson to rely on wealthy individuals who were willing to provide money or opportunities in exchange for association with royal circles. Finally, the role of Prince Andrew adds another layer to the story. Andrew initially served as the connection between Ferguson and Epstein through his friendship with the financier and his association with Ghislaine Maxwell. However, many of Ferguson's emails to Epstein appear to have been sent independently. This suggests that the relationship between Ferguson and Epstein developed beyond Andrew's original introduction. At the same time, the situation complicated Ferguson's already unusual relationship with her former husband. Although they divorced in 1996, Ferguson and Andrew continued to live near each other and often appeared together at family events. As the Epstein scandal grew in public attention, this close post-divorce relationship between the two former spouses became even more scrutinized. The controversy surrounding Epstein therefore did not affect only Ferguson. It also added pressure to the wider circle of people connected to Andrew and the British royal family. Consequences of the scandal. The connection between Sarah Ferguson and Jeffrey Epstein produced consequences that unfolded over many years. What began as a controversial financial relationship gradually developed into a reputational crisis that affected Ferguson, her family, and her public work. The first major consequences appeared in 2011, after media outlets revealed that Epstein had paid £15,000 to help Ferguson resolve an urgent debt. Public criticism intensified. Ferguson responded with a public apology during an interview with the Evening Standard. She described accepting the money as a gigantic error of judgment. Following that apology, Ferguson stated that she would no longer maintain contact with Epstein publicly. The relationship appeared to end at that point. However, later reports suggested that communication between them may have continued privately for some time, for several years. The controversy remained largely dormant. Ferguson continued working as a writer, charity supporter, and media personality. She also maintained close family ties with Prince Andrew and remained active in projects connected to her daughters, Princess Beatrice and Princess Eugenie. The situation changed dramatically in the mid-2020s when new legal documents and previously unseen emails connected to Epstein became public. These materials revealed a much larger volume of communication between Ferguson and Epstein than had been previously known. The renewed scrutiny triggered significant damage to Ferguson's public reputation. Several charitable organizations began reviewing their association with her. Among them was Teenage Cancer Trust, one of the most visible charities connected to members of the British royal family. Ferguson gradually lost a number of honorary patronage roles as organizations sought to distance themselves from controversy. At the same time, publishing plans connected to her career were disrupted. A children's book project was reportedly postponed while publishers assessed the potential backlash connected to the revived scandal. Media coverage of the newly revealed emails also intensified public interest in Ferguson's past financial controversies. By early 2026, the pressure had grown even stronger. In February 2026, Ferguson reportedly closed a charitable initiative associated with her name, often referred to as Sarah's Trust. At the same time, several smaller companies linked to her commercial activities were dissolved. During the same period, Ferguson declined a proposed book deal reportedly worth around £1.5 million. Observers interpreted the decision as an attempt to reduce public exposure, while the controversy remained active. Ferguson also stepped back from some aspects of public life. Reports suggested that she quietly left the residence she had shared for years at Royal Lodge, the home associated with Prince Andrew. She avoided major public interviews and largely remained silent while the new documents circulated in the media. The impact of the scandal extended beyond Ferguson herself. Her daughters, Princess Beatrice and Princess Eugenie, were not directly involved in the controversy. However, their charitable and professional activities came under closer media scrutiny because of the renewed attention surrounding Epstein and the wider circle connected to him. Within the British royal family, the situation added another layer of sensitivity to an already difficult issue. The association between Epstein and Prince Andrew had already created international controversy. Ferguson's connection to Epstein complicated that situation further and contributed to growing distance between some members of the royal family and the Duke of York's immediate circle. On a broader level, the scandal reflected a larger debate about accountability among powerful individuals and elite social networks. Epstein's connections to wealthy and influential figures around the world raised persistent questions about how long warning signs were ignored. There is no evidence that Ferguson was involved in Epstein's criminal activities. However, the long history of personal communication and financial assistance created a lasting reputational cost. For many observers, the issue was not criminal responsibility, but judgment. As a result, the Epstein connection remains one of the most damaging controversies in Ferguson's public life. Even decades after their first contact, the relationship continues to shape how her legacy is viewed in both the media and public opinion.